I gather that the Met Office has put out a warning to say that the cold that we're experiencing at the moment in the UK is going to get colder. I was certainly cold last night. In my house, I can breathe out, and you'll see the I was going to say fumes, but it's not fumes. Your breath, you know, the water particles. You can see that. Look at me. I'm now dressed up in very warm clothes. I've had this for years, and I dare say many people up and down the countryside are digging out the warmest clothes they've got. They may look like abominable snowmen, all wrapped up in their wools and furs and whatever you've got. And I can tell you, charity shops, if you need something cheap, is a very good source of that kind of thing. Earlier, the government was telling us that we needed to put on these jumpers and things and turn our thermostats down just a little bit to survive. Well, I'm disagreeing with that. I think that we need to keep the heat on ourselves and on the government. It's interesting, as I mentioned in a video a few days ago, that the coal-fired power stations are coming back on stream. We got rid of loads. We shouldn't have done it. Until we have a transition to the so-called greener energies, then we should still be using coal and oil. And I gather that the HSBC have been forced now by all sorts of pressure to stop funding coal and oil investigations and activities, because people are so bought into this nonsense of the carbon-free agenda that we're in, which is so sad. We can see at the moment, until the transition is complete, that solar and wind and nuclear are on stream and providing 100%, if not 110% reliable energy in the depths of winter when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing. Only then is it sensible to start thinking about reducing our traditional ways of heating. The cost of this need not, I don't think, be as high as it is if the government had been fracking and trying to look to its own resources as opposed to relying on other people or other countries. So I definitely think that people at home should, if you're cold, if you're freezing, put the blooming heating on, for goodness sake. Now, I understand some people may have key meters, and that's really a problem because you are at the mercy of actually having the cash. And I don't know what the answer is for you to do that, because you'll be juggling food and paying the meter, which is very wrong. You can't tackle the cold if you don't have food in your belly. But if you have a central heating or other means of heating, and you're just worried about spending the money, I would say spend the money, because what are they going to do? They'll bill you extortionate amounts, yes, but you don't need to pay it. I think it would be very, what would they do? Cut you off? Are they going to cut you off? I think you could take them to court. I think it would be unreasonable in extreme cold temperatures that you are supposed to, in a civilized and sophisticated society such as the UK is supposed to be, after the years and years of development that we have had and the cleverness that we have utilized to get to this point, that we are now in an absurd situation where many of the population are shivering. I noticed somebody I follow on Twitter was saying that their bedroom had warmed up, that it was 6 degrees in their bedroom that night, as opposed to the previous night that was 4 degrees. This is a nonsense. I'm not saying that people should be sitting in saunas, but I'm saying that people should not be freezing to death. There isn't enough prisons to put everybody in if you don't pay initially. If you're worried about the county court judgments and things like that, the best thing to do is to say, look, I can't pay, but I will pay this much, even if it's a nominal amount. The offer to pay is better than refusing to pay altogether, but put it over the next 12 months or 24 months, whatever one can afford. I think if you're sitting there in front of a judge and you're saying, is it reasonable that I should freeze to death rather than pay my debts over a number of months? I think that any judge in this land worth his salt would say, no, you have a right to life, and that you can pay off your debts in the future if you need to. But we need to tell the government that we're not putting up with this. They need to sort out the energy for this country so that we never have to go through this again, whether the blizzards are coming and it's cold or not. So I know I made a video about this fairly recently, about the cold and are you going to just roll over. But I was worried that there are still people out there who are trying to juggle the two. And my message is, put the bloody heating on. You're no good if you've frozen in the night, and plenty of old and vulnerable people will need to stay warm. So please look after yourself and don't just swallow the fear.